the September 17th, 2025 Forest Lake Parks and Recreation Commission meeting to order. First item is roll call.
Commissioner Eckert,
Here.
Commissioner Mattson, Commissioner Moorhead,
Here.
Commissioner Tyson,
Here.
Commissioner Herdina,
Here.
Commissioner Gary, Commissioner Lundmark.
Here.
All right, if you're able, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Tim, seconded by Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Open forum, citizen petitions, requests, or concerns. Do we have any cards, Kyle?
No one that signed up.
Okay. Moving on from that. Item 6, approve the minutes from our August 20th, 2025 Parks and Rec Commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would approve the minutes with a correction.
Okay,
The correction being down at the commissioner updates where it involved my corn feed, and I'm so impressed and happy with we do. But it says on there that Member Moorhead said only commissioners should be volunteering. And I didn't say that at all. I said that they should be asked first. And if we didn't have enough, go outside and get other volunteers. So if that could be corrected, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I have one other correction, just for the record. It shows me as present at the August 20th meeting, but I was absent, so just for the record.
okay. Kyle, do you have those two changes? Yep. Okay. Any other changes to the, thanks for that, Sue and Karen. Any other revisions?
I move approval with the corrections.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got Karen moving and Aaron seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Okey-dokey. Next item 7, Chestnut Creek. I believe we're having a presentation from the community development team. Abby.
Thank you, Chair Tyson, members of the Parks and Recreation Commission. For those of you who don't know who I am Forest Lake's Community Development Director. So my name's Abby Whitman. I help oversee planning, zoning, code enforcement, economic development. So tonight you have a couple applications before you of land development applications that are going through a platting process. And part of our plat review process is your body, the Parks and Recreation Commission, takes a look at the preliminary plat to determine if there are park and recreation needs as part of this land development, and you make recommendation to the City Council. Just also want to take a minute to introduce our new Assistant Community Development Director, Stephen Gilmore. He's going to just sit over there and observe, but just know that you have quite a bit of staff, not quite a bit of staff actually, there's me and Steve and our admin Don in-house that are helping you grow, build, sustain the parks and recreation open space system here in Forest Lake. So tonight, the first application before you is Chestnut Creek. Chestnut Creek application. Do you need a minute, Commissioner or Chair?
I'm just going to move a chair over.
Okay, I'll give you a second before I move on. So our land subdivision process follows a 3-application process review, or review process. The first application is a concept plan. The second application is a preliminary plat, and then there's a final plat. Concept plan was also to come to the Parks and Recreation Commission. You guys were like, 1 month in. And the concern was, at that point, because of this application, a few of the applications we've had, the concern was that the Parks Commission wasn't quite prepared to make comment in your first meeting. Tonight before you, though, as preliminary plat. We look at preliminary plats as the kind of meat and potatoes of land development. This is the time that we're really looking at the land development that's being proposed and looking to see how does it conform and not conform to the city's codes, standards, and so forth. So the preliminary plat tonight for Chestnut Creek is before you. There's a few applicable regulations that come into play when you're looking at development applications. Minnesota State Statutes 462, 358 gives the city the right to require parkland to be dedicated at the time of land subdivision. So essentially, at the time that we want to take 100 acres or 10 and make 100 homes or 1,000 or 10, that dividing up the land is the time in which the city can ask for parkland. And the big thing to ask for, or the big thing that the state requires, is that there needs to be some nexus. There needs to be some proportionality to which we would be asking for parkland. We need it for some reason. The statute also allows us to have ask for cash in lieu of land, or a combination of both. There are circumstances where land or parkland is not needed, not required, there's an excess, maybe there's, for whatever reason, we can accept cash on a fair market value or a per lot. The determination of cash is a very individualized assessment. Very traditionally, the city has in its fee schedule $2,500 per lot, but the way the statute is written and the way the city's ordinances are written is we can ask for more cash above the $2,500 if the fair market value of the land exceeds that $2,500 per lot. I'll kind of get into a little bit here the city code section 152. That's our subdivision regulations, which empower the city to ask for land as part of the subdivision process. Again, there's that essential nexus requirement. Is this ask bear a rough proportionality to what the developer wants to do? In our code, we separate land dedication requirements out by land use. So land that's dedicated or being developed exclusively for residential use would be required to provide 10% of the land area for parkland, open space, recreational needs. Non-residential uses, 5% of the land area. And then mixed use goes based on the percentage. If you have a 50 residential, that 50% residential is 10% of that area. And then if the other 50% is non-residential, it's 5% of that land area. You talk about that cash again, we're talking about the acceptance of cash in lieu and fair market value. We look at that 10% too. We take that 50, area, 50% of the area, take 5% of the value of that is one way that we can do that assessment. So Chestnut Creek is an interesting neighborhood and an interesting application before you, and I sincerely hope this is the hardest one you ever have to go through. Chestnut Creek was approved as a planned unit development in 2016, so 10 years ago. The city of Forest Lake, then city council, approved the planned unit development for 114 acres to have 220 homes on it. The project is always designed to have 2 phases. And before you tonight, you see the first phase highlighted in green. That was approved in that 2016 approval. And that planned unit development and that preliminary plat approval gave this land some rights that are not traditional if we're just working with vacant land now. Essentially, that planned unit development says, hey, landowner developer, you can build 220 units on this property in this fashion. And that is what we call a vested land right. Those vested land rights run with the land forever. And at the time, what was the former Parks, Lakes, Trails Commission recommended that no parkland be dedicated for the all of Chestnut Creek, that the city accept cash in lieu of land dedication. And at the time that the city council approved it in 2016, the city council upheld that recommendation. In other words, in 2016, the city approved the Chestnut Creek neighborhood, both phases with 220 units, to not have any parkland associated in this neighborhood. Tonight before you is the proposed plat that would finish off the phase 2. So again, we're going to go back really quick. Phase 1 in the green, and then everything that's on the kind of north and the west would be considered for, I think I put in there, I have I have a slight issue. The phase 2, it's not 108 units, 119 lots on the 58 remaining acres. As proposed, the application before you tonight does not show any parkland to be dedicated, because the proposal before you tonight is taking those old land use approvals and bringing them forward and asking the city, may we move forward with the second phase of this development. So no matter what kind of land dedication you're looking at, what you really want to be looking at is, what are the guiding documents, city plans, and policies that say, should parkland be here or not? Currently, the existing 2040 comprehensive plan calls for parkland in the area, and I don't think, oh, it does show up there. Right in this neighborhood, we do identify for a future neighborhood park. For reference, Chestnut Creek is just to the north of that circle. The circle is not 100% prescriptive. It essentially says, we'd like to have something there where we'll figure out through these land subdivision processes. Additionally, in your draft Parks, Trails, and Open Space plan that you're going to be looking at updating, we do address that traditionally parkland was developed in what is a half-mile service area. Can the neighborhood be serviced within 1/2 mile of this park? Or within 1/2 mile of this neighborhood, is there a park that can help that neighborhood? When you look at the park or the half-mile service area, Chestnut Creek is right in this area, which if you look at the kind of historic way that we look at parkland needs, it would be serviced by one of the other neighborhoods in the community. Understandably, again, that's within a half-mile service area. Your new park plan, draft park plan, does indicate that the city should be looking at the 10-minute walk shed. The idea that maybe a half mile might be a little excessive. Maybe we should be looking at creating parks, trails, open space features within a 10-mile walk shed area. If you look at that, then you can see Chestnut Creek, it's where those existing phase 1 is outside of that 10-minute walk shed area. So tonight on the dais before you, you do have 2 sets of public comments. The Planning Commission did hold a hearing last week, week before, don't remember the public meeting week, lots of meetings. And at that time, the Planning Commission took significant public testimony, mostly from the phase 1 neighborhood residents, who are very disappointed that the second phase of this development does not have parkland. The 2 comments before you, which I think one was Erickson and the other one was Perquette, really emphasize again the desire for the neighborhood to have parkland as part of this new neighborhood plat. Staff is very sympathetic and empathetic. Frankly, from a community development standpoint, I wouldn't stand here in front of you today and say our new neighborhoods don't deserve parks. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where the city council made some decisions 10 years ago that we are in a little bit of a pickle of how we would require parkland dedication now when there are those vested land rights. So tonight before you and staff's recommendation is you discuss this matter, and ultimately you need to make a recommendation to the city council. The code is prescriptive in that you make recommendation on park need and or location. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about with this specific application. One thing I did not mention to you that I should, just really quick, that Chestnut Creek neighborhood and the 10-minute walk shed. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. This area where it's not currently being serviced by parks within 10 minutes. I did note in my staff report at your meeting in October, I'll be right back before you. You'll be seeing me, I think, fairly consistently for a little bit, or other staff. The city has received another preliminary plat application for the potential acquisition or city's dedication of 22 acres of land for parkland, just to the immediate southwest of this parcel. It is obviously a raw land. It's a wooded piece of property. It has some wetlands on it, but that is an area that the city has identified as fulfilling that future neighborhood park and would be able to be meeting those needs of the Chesapeake Creek neighborhood in the future, but also recognizing we don't have an immediate development plan at this time. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. The developer and applicant, D.R. Horton, is also here tonight if the chair wants to call on them for any questions or discussion. Do you have any questions for me right now?
Any questions for Abby? Karen?
I have one, if you can prompt my memory.
Yeah.
I believe that when we said no park at that first phase, it was included that there would be one between Phase 1 and Phase 2, and that would service both of them rather than having two parks.
So I have heard a very similar memory from many of the members of the community. The planned unit development that's up on the board right now did not show parkland. So even though I think definitely the developer had said at some point or another to the city and maybe residents that there would be future parkland, when the council approved the planned unit development, it did not include any parkland dedication requirements.
Was there a land payment? Was there that land?
There was a payment, a cash fee in lieu to address the Phase 1 per lot. The Phase 2 fees were not paid at that time, assuming that they would be paid at the next subdivision, this second phase. I will say in our phased developments, that is something that the city does and staff recommends, that we only accept fee or land at the time of land subdivision, because there is the possibility that we might be able to acquire more land and or additional fees if those land values do go up in time.
Are there questions for Abby?
I know, I just feel that since that statement was made there, the developer and the neighborhood would certainly have had the opinion that they were going to have a neighborhood park in the middle. So is that what they were maybe at the planning commission saying? Because it was,
I cannot find any map or plan submitted into the public record through the process with the planning commission or the city council that ever showed parkland for it.
and I can see why, because it was all to be determined when the next phase was approved.
Yes, but this is the layout that we see on every plan to the planning commission and city council, so.
So is it too late to make that a requirement for Phase 2? To have a park included?
Currently, the developer has asked to amend the planned unit development. So again, that 2016 approval of the kind of blanket development. Arguably, when you go to amend a planned unit development, the developer would like to make variations to the lot sizes, widths, those sorts of things. The city could ask then for additional public amenities. It's a great question you bring that up, Commissioner Gary, because when the Planning Commission did take a look at this and took public testimony, the Planning Commission is very sympathetic, as I'm sure all of you are, to the existing neighborhood, as am I don't want to say like I'm not. But the Planning Commission's recommendation to the City Council is to deny the planned unit development amendment on the basis that no additional public amenities are being proposed in the amended development. essentially, the planning commission was looking out for you and saying, and looking out for the neighborhood and looking out and saying, hey, if you want to amend that plan we agreed to 10 years ago, great, we do too. Give us some parkland. The developer has that ability to reevaluate the overall plan, but I do believe the action before you, the request on the developer's part is, hey, city, what do you think of this plan right now, as you saw it before, without parklands?
So with the amended plan, are they changing lot sizes or is that staying the same?
There's a couple different requests. The one request, so it's a little bit tricky, and forgive me, Commissioner Eckert.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds about lots, but at the time the development was being proposed, the minimum lot size was 12,000 square foot per lot. The city's planned unit development overlay on this whole neighborhood, phase 1 and phase 2, said your lots can be as small as 7,700 square feet. Since that time, the city has amended the minimum lot size for the MXR1 zoning district that would now allow for 7,500 square foot lots, but the developer is asking for lots that are 7,100 square feet. They have indicated there isn't that many, and it is quite possible that they would withdraw that request. Additionally, the minimum lot size in the MXR1, minimum lot width in the MXR1 district is 65-foot width. The developer is asking for 55-foot width lots.
So would that mean the lots is going to increase, so you're going to have more homes because the lots are smaller?
There is
or-
a small increase being proposed above the 220 lots that were originally proposed. I think if I remember correctly, it's 225 total lots? Yeah, 5 additional lots than what would have been proposed by the PUD.
We do have D.R. Horton here, if the commission like to hear from them.
Maybe help.
Say, Karen, I think you have a different development, or was it part of this?
No, that's fine.
When there was like a small chunk and then 3.5 or 4 acres? Whatever happened to that?
It evidently
Well,
wasn't.
we do have a guest here. Thank you for coming forward. Just introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Deb Ridgway. I'm with D.R. Horton. With me tonight is Mike Sewell and Frank Hagan, also with D.R. Horton. Just want to start with, we were not the original developer on this property, so we are buying it from a private landowner. So we are coming in here trying to present this. Yes, we're asking for smaller lot sizes. We have one lot that's at 7,100 square feet, which we are going to look to eliminate, so we'll probably withdraw that. As far as the lot sizes, the PUD that's approved allows the lots to go down to 52 feet wide, and we are at 55. So I guess if we withdraw the application for the PUD amendment, we can adjust our lot sizes still to be within what we want here. Additionally, as far as a PUD, typically there's a public benefit to requesting that. And we are actually correcting some of the wetland buffers that were encroached upon in the first phase. So we're looking to help with the watersheds situation on the number of homes that have encroachments in the wetland buffers. So we're providing an additional 1 acre of wetland buffer with our plan. We are not against doing a park on the site. We would request that it be public, however, and that we get credit for park fees for that. But we are not against it. We're having discussions with staff, and that's why we're in front of you tonight.
So when you say you've looked at having a park there, what size park were you looking at?
We actually, after the neighborhood meeting we had, because it was brought up at our neighborhood meeting. It was really, we kind of looked in this kind of quadrant, this corner, which is kind of centrally located, which would be at this intersection with these 2 or 3 lots over here. So it'd be pretty small. It'd be a pocket park with a playground, and we had shown a half basketball court, I believe, because that was one of the comments from the neighbors that was a desirable feature.
Did you look at,
Size-wise, as far as square footage, how big is that?
Square footage, it's probably about 16,000 square feet, maybe, would you say? 15,000?
But less than a half acre, though.
Yeah.
did you look at all, instead of cash, if you went to a 3.5, 4 acre lot, what that would do to your plan?
We did not. Our intention was to come forward with the preliminary plat, essentially, that was approved back in 2016. But the discussion came up with the desire for a park, and so that's why we're here.
How many feet is Belts Park? Like the playground area that we're rebuilding?
How big is it?
Yeah, how many square feet?
Hockey rink, so 80 by 1,600 square feet.
The whole park, though, has got to be, what, 2 acres?
Bigger than that.
I think for reference, Kyle did prepare for you what some size parks are that are relevant to the system you have, to give you an idea of a comparable park in Forest Lake.
Right, so if we went with a smaller park, like land-wise, we could still put a structure that's something like Belts Park, where they wouldn't have the land to run around, but they would have a park, correct? No?
I'm not sure, but I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah, I think, thank you for your comments.
We have like a quarter acre park right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So
Melinda?
this
Melissa?
was approved, right? But now then there's new developers that have purchased this land from,
This is a quarter, so this is about a quarter acre to
they,
30 acre.
this wasn't their development originally. Now then they've come and purchased the land. And so wouldn't that be a new development being brought forward? I mean,
Abby?
I feel like that's new.
Sure. The land subdivision statute and the land subdivision ordinance would say, yes, this is a new subdivision. However, it's got that planned unit development umbrella over it. So even though, yes, this is a new subdivision, it has the approvals of that planned unit development from 10 years ago,
It's a new developer.
even though it is a new developer, correct? This is why when I started out, I said, I really sincerely think and I hope that this is the hardest land development review that you'll have to ever review.
Well, one of the things we've seen in the short time we've been together is following city plans and policies is pretty important. And fortunately, unfortunately, there was never a park planned in this area. Now you talk about in October, there's a 22-acre park that's coming. Granted, that's not going to happen tomorrow. But I'd be concerned if we start every time a development happens, we put in these little pocket parks. That just creates a huge maintenance issue for the city long-term, and really, I don't think meets the needs of what we're trying to get at with having big neighborhood parks. Whether we call it a pickle or whatever, but this was approved 10 years ago, and plans been put in motion around that. Sounds like other improvements are being made with wetlands. But I know you get a staff recommendation here going to the council to, and what I'm hearing tonight is that we stick with that staff recommendation, forward it on to the council.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, are you saying the original 10 years ago? Correct?
Correct.
That's
I
what
think
I would be
there's,
thinking too.
the city made a commitment to the developer, and whether it was a good commitment or not, I think the cities need to live up to what agreements they've made.
It wasn't a pocket park,
And it wasn't a pocket park.
no.
Yeah, but the developer didn't finish their part of the deal. They sold the land. Well, I'm just saying, I mean,
I'd suggest, and I won't speak for D.R. Horton, though, they wouldn't buy the land and they thought that agreement could be thrown out the door. I don't know if there's we want any more discussion on this, or somebody would like to make
I
a,
guess I'm just kind of confused by the disappearance of that park that had been talked about at one point in time.
I think I understand that. Have you said because the plans changed with the developer, there was going to be one developer, and it was pretty united in all the people saying, this is a great spot, and it should be a bigger park to take care of both sections. And I think what I'm hearing you saying is that we should stick with that original thought.
well, and I think you also consider that we heard from Abby, we've got 22 acres coming just to the southwest here in the very near future.
I didn't hear very near future, and I think that was brought up at that time, that, having people have to wait for another developer, I mean, that was brought up, that what would happen if more came, but I think it was at the time that was pretty much united in everybody saying it should be in the middle of the areas, and that there should be a larger park so that it would not, so that could service both areas.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like 3.5 or 4 acres.
It was.
Commissioner Tyson, members of the commission, if I might just interject, I understand that there may have been discussions that there would be a park, but the approvals that were granted in 2016 did not include one.
It's a shame.
And this body did, at that time, recommend accepting cash in lieu for the entire planned unit development.
This commission, or
Well,
the
the
commission at
former
that
Parks,
time,
Lakes, and Trails Commission.
eliminating the idea of a park at all?
Correct. Your that then commission that sat before you recommended
Well,
the
I
city
don't-
accept fee in lieu, and the council accepted that. So
Remember that.
you'll see that the site was masqueraded as part of the development, gearing up for that original design, and I can flip back to my PowerPoint presentation really quick to show you that neighborhood as a whole. You can see those streets as they were originally lined out are in existence today. They're not asphalted, but you have those roads. The one change would be that this proposed development is being slightly altered, that the roadway would extend down directly to the south. And that direct south connection, though it is one property owner over, leads right into a property right now called the Sheelander property. That property is not being proposed to be developed at this time. Chances are it's going to be proposed to be developed in, I know, I use the words near future a lot. But that will be directly connected to the area that the city staff has been in discussions with on Amberley Woods, this property here, where we would have that 22 acres. I acknowledge that it is a heavily wooded area, it is a wetland area, but the intent of our potential acquisition of this land was to combine a portion of this land with lands of the other 4 properties around it, so that we could make a larger community park or larger neighborhood park, I guess, depending what those definitions really are, that could have both active and passive recreation built onto that site.
Any other questions for Abby, or,
Make a recommendation and just see where it goes.
okay, Karen?
I would recommend that we stick with the original plan of having the larger park in the center of the two, and working it out with the developers if that need be, or, shame on us if we were supposed to do something else about making it a commitment. We didn't have the right to make it a commitment at that time. So my motion would be to go back to the original plan for those parks. Developments.
And you're saying amend the plan to include the park? Is that what you're saying?
If I would you have to amend the plan to go back to that? Then
It would require an amendment to the city asking the developer to amend the PUD to put in parkland into this new phase, correct?
Yep, that would include in my motion.
So we're clear, Karen, it would be, instead of taking a cash dedication fee, you would want the land dedication to happen.
Right.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I second that.
Once again, this is a recommendation to the council. It's not an action we take, but, well, I've said already, I support the staff recommendation of having cash on this. I think there's a better opportunity for a bigger park there in the future.
I'm just concerned with the community, the people that are living in that community. Apparently, they're not necessarily happy. Just a little concerned about that, but I think it needs another look at the plan.
Well, these plans have been approved 2016, and anybody that was buying a lot in that area could see there was no park planned.
But had been told about the plan, I'm sure. And
Well,
that's
we
why
don't
I'm
know that.
saying, we don't know that,
But
but
the
I
city
would,
documents clearly show there was never a park planned in this PUD.
the idea of a
so-
park. But now I would be telling the neighborhood again, we didn't commit it at that time, but we were gonna do it in the future. Now we're telling them again, we're not doing it this time, but we're gonna do it in the future. And that's where I get into a little bit of, I would like it all looked at again to make sure, because I do not remember accepting money for that whole thing at all. So that's why I would like to go back and, in the motion, to make sure that everything is clear again, because I just see it as an unfair situation.
Well, I just think that the 220 units without a park is not appropriate.
Right.
And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but in some places it got dropped off, and at some point, it was thought that they needed to have parks, and there was going to be a smaller one for the first phase, and there was a smaller one for the second phase, and then said, well, gee, if we go to this other spot, we can do one park, but it was going to be larger, like I said, 3.5. And, and now don't have a park, plus they want smaller lot sizes.
Well, I certainly respect you and Karen were here before, but all that we've got to go on is the record of what was approved and documented. And no park was ever documented that would be put here at any time in the future in this.
Well,
And I don't think D.R. Horton's asking for smaller lots. They're complying with, and that's not our lane anyways. Lot size isn't our lane. This is just about parks, so I don't want to go down that path, but. So the motion that Karen has made and seconded is that recommend the city council accept land dedication instead of a cash donation. That appropriate motion, Abby,
Yep, I think that's an acceptable recommendation, and that at least gets us in front of the council's lap. That will help provide the developer with the answers they need to see if they want to move forward with the development.
any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Aye. Thanks for coming out tonight. You taking the condo item, Abby? Okay. No.
Yeah, toughest one we ever have to,
Pardon?
I agree with you, hopefully the toughest thing we ever have to talk.
That one, I mean, you'll see many more land dedication discussions or land development discussions in the coming years. We have a lot of land subdivision that will be happening in Forest Lake in the coming years. Where we have some of these, what I would call historic developments, and they're tricky to navigate through. So it's my hope we can get through them and actually get the land developed. And then we move on and have some other items, so. You ready for me, Chair? Great.
Yes, thanks, Abby.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I will say this one. Again, between the two tonight, I'm probably going to run through this because I won't go through as much history and the statutory requirements. I think you've all just been briefed on what subdivision review and land dedication requirements are in our previous proposal. But tonight before you, the city has, for consideration, you have a recommendation to the city council regarding the Forest Lake Garage Condos project. So as a reminder, anytime there's land subdivision, doesn't matter if it's residential, non-residential, or mixed use, we have the right to ask for land to be dedicated for park, recreation, open space purposes. Tonight, along Forest Road for your consideration is the Forest Lake Garage Condos, which it would be a non-residential development plat that would consist of quite a number, 100 plus, commercial condo units. So garage spaces, a lot of times they're called man caves. I don't want to offend anybody by saying that, but I think we all kind of think we know what we mean when we're that. And this is a land subdivision process. So in that, not only will the developer be coming forward and platting up each of these buildings, but then those buildings get platted up even more. And so tonight before you is that consideration of, should we accept land? Do we have recreational needs in this area? Or should we recommend cash in lieu of land dedication? So I included in my packet a little bit of analysis that the city has done to determine, we have a lot of people coming to Forest Lake during the day, large employers, and our employees of our community are using our recreational facilities. So staff, the city does believe that even our non-residential developers need to contribute to the Parks Trails recreation system. Looking at our Park Trail Recreation map, I don't even know if that's what it's called, Park and Trails map, the development is located in an area, and I should have put a big star right on these. I'll note that for the future to put big stars where these are. No parkland is being proposed in this area. There is the Hardwood Creek Trail on the other side of Forest Road. Hardwood Creek Trail will connect to a trail on Highway 97. So there is definitely some recreational amenities in the area, but at the moment, we don't need any more parkland in this area. So tonight for your consideration, just the same as the last application, what are our parkland needs? And if there's no parkland needs, my recommendation that we make a recommendation to the council that we would accept fee in lieu of land dedication.
Thanks, Abby.
Any questions?
Questions for Abby?
I will say the developer is also here as well, if you have any questions.
So I'm just trying to understand the layout. So it's right on the other side of the airport.
It's just on the north side of the airport.
So there's nothing that we have anywhere near that anyone would need a park,
No,
essentially.
it's the airport, this property, and then interstate companies. Interstate companies does, heavy land development, roadway development, maintenance. There really is no residential along this roadway at all. Not to say that residential is the only need for parkland, but in this area, it's just not designed. We do have the Fenway complex not too far. Southview, is that it? That's close in the neighborhood. So we do have some park, Cedar Park, I think, not Cedar, Clear Lake Park, within close proximity.
Thoughts?
Any questions, comments?
Like this one.
Abby,
I
do you know what the
agree with.
cash,
We take the
what is
money.
the cash donation amount? Does that have been calculated?
That has not been calculated. I know in the past, city staff would bring to the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission a specific dollar amount. So reminder, we're at preliminary plat. We're making the sausage right now. And part of making the sausage sometimes is not necessarily telling all the secret ingredients. This is part of just ongoing development negotiations with the developer. So it's my recommendation, we don't have you recommend a specific dollar amount, but we would bring that dollar amount back to you and give you that update later after the dedication had occurred.
Karen?
He would appreciate us recommending that there are no parks necessary there and suggested a cash donation.
Correct. My recommendation, should anyone want to make a motion, would be a motion to recommend the city council accept fee in lieu of land dedication for the Forest Lake Garage condos.
Somebody like to make that motion?
And if so, you could just say so moved.
So moved.
All right, Melissa makes that motion.
I'll second.
Aaron seconds it, that the commission recommends to the city council accept the cash dedication fee in lieu of land for the Forest Lake Garage Condos plat. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you, guys. Good evening.
See you next month.
Sausage. Oh, there we go.
Staff report on FLAAA facility use agreement. Kyle?
So, we are coming into the time of year where we would normally start negotiations with FLA for facility use agreements, and that's something that's been done on an annual basis. What we are discussing, there's a lot to discuss here, right? The city is looking into taking over the dirt work, the field maintenance part of Fenway Park with dragging the fields, prepping fields, everything like that. So being that we've had those discussions, we're kind of looking at a two-tiered deal here. We're looking at entering what would be an agreement negotiation for FLA, but then also kind of giving an update on where we are at with the field prep. What was it, back in May, I believe, there was discussion here with this commission on what would you like staff to look into as far as the field prep goes, field maintenance goes for the dirt work, now that FLA has expressed interest in letting that part go. It was identified to discuss with the school district, to discuss with internal, and then look for maybe a third party or independent contractor to work with. Did provide just an update. The school district stated they're in no position to add that type of work onto their plate, which had kind of led into some good conversation with the school district that staff is continuing to have with them on a monthly basis, looking at, again, our whole system. The goal at the end of the day is to not be duplicating services within. There's been two meetings now, and it's very encouraging with where we're going. But the reality is in 2026, we need somebody to provide the dirt work at Fenway Park. So contractor availability, that's a tough one to nail down. Not a ton of options if push came to shove, if we really had to seek that out. What the idea is that would probably come at a pretty hefty price. And to find somebody local, it's a challenge right now. So discussing internally, myself and Dave feel pretty confident that we can manage that, being with equipment. We'd add equipment and we'd need to add staff. I don't know if you want to just provide the update that we kind of calculated that in for 26.
Yeah, so on the current CIP, or the capital equipment plan, there's we'll call it a field groomer.
Yep.
City staff does not have a field groomer, and then plugged in 2 additional seasonals that we plan to be out there. Also on proposed budget is an additional parks maintenance full-time employee. This was actually just planned because of increased work that staff has, but they would absorb a lot of this work, because there's a lot of work that, as you remember, a lot of work that happens in April and May and August and September that these seasonals are not here, so that full-timer would take a lot of hours of that full-time spot. So it's kind of fortunate it has lined up that it was kind of planned that we were going to be adding staff at this point. The unfortunate part is that a lot of those times it's going to go to more work that we're absorbing. If it doesn't get approved by council, that full-time employee, then we're going to have to figure something else out too, because our current staff would not be able to accommodate, you can add seasonals, but it's those outside portions that we can't accommodate. Somewhat in a work in progress. We're positively thinking that that position would get approved, and we're planning that position would be there as we start planning on doing that maintenance, but we're just not 100% that we'll get the equipment and that staff. But overall, Kyle's correct. the school district can't do it, and I contracted out from what we get for per field rates, it's gonna be astronomical to take care of Fenway, just Fenway Fields itself, not alone Cooling Camp and Schilling and all these other fields we have as well.
Conversations with FLA have been pretty positive with the whole picture. Again, they are the ones that brought forward that they would want to stop providing that service. So there's nothing here that's rubbing elbows by any means, and everything's kind of on the up and up. The biggest thing, and this is kind of the twofold part, is we're getting into this time where FLA does do their budget in October. So we would like to provide them some kind of number of what we're looking at for charges. Something I added in this report is just there's been a wide range of costs that have been tied into services provided out at Fenway Park for FLA. Again, really FLA is housing the youth traveling sports, right? Those prices have ranged anywhere from $17,000 up to $75,000+ that they have had to historically pay for services. Back when an independent contractor was taking care of those fields, I think costs were upwards of $75,000+. That was for all the field maintenance, for the chalking, for the field painting, basically everything that the city is going to be taking on. Currently, the 2025 agreement had FLA paying $28,000, $28,500, I believe, for their usage. And that was for the park usage. One thing that we want to note is that the Fenway Fields, those are a specialty use. It's a specialty use park. It's a community park. There's some things there, but when it comes to those fields, it's special use. It's an athletic complex. So the city really has to be mindful of, there's a lot of dollars that go in. It's a great facility. FLA, it's great to have those youth programs, but that does come with a dollar amount. Right now, there is not a hard proposal of a number, but the current rate that FLA is paying for the year 2025 was based off of a $10 an hour usage. They used about 2,800+ hours in total between lacrosse, softball, and baseball, and that is just city parks. They do use other facilities that they need more hours, but the usage for our city parks and fields is about 2,850 hours. And we just said $10 an hour for that is very reasonable when you look at this type of park amenity use. So,
Kyle,
And that fee was them doing the dirt work. So it was, they were incurring that cost of doing the dragging and chalking.
yep, and they do pay that out. They hire the staff, right? They maintain the equipment. All of that comes with on top of that fee. So, Chair.
yeah, thanks, Kyle. So we've got two options here in your recommendation, and things are changing out there. City's going to maintain those fields. It's no longer going to be a partnership or FLA do it. And it looks like option B, though, is continuing what's been done in the past, which in that world doesn't exist anymore. And option A is really where we need to go, it seems like, is, negotiate a rate, which we were going to do even under B, but update the policy to reflect the new world we're in. And certainly the research the most efficient software, that's kind of an operational issue, but certainly, I know I've tried to use the software and it is pretty cumbersome. And if we're going to have a new world, how are you going to run those things? You certainly should research that software. So I guess what I'm saying is it seems like B reflects a world that doesn't exist anymore, and we need to move towards what you're recommending in A.
Yeah, and the new facility use policy is really with the idea of we've had a separate user agreement with FLA. We have a very it's an outdated use policy for anybody else that comes in, right? So basically, you have this agreement with FLA that really portions of that could be adopted into a new policy. That way, anybody that comes in and rent the fields, that's just the user policy for these fields. There are other users that would be able to use the field. There's tournaments that could be hosted, and that's kind of where, this new policy comes in, is just to say, go away with the agreement. There's really no point of having the agreement if you have a strong use policy at the forefront that just lays out this is what the use policy is. FLA would be classified, so they would have they would still maintain priority use. We're not trying to push them off of there, but we're just gonna have a solid use policy, then we don't need that agreement. And that's what that item 2 in that option A was. So,
Questions for Dave or Kyle?
I don't know which one, but either one. I was glad to hear you said that FLA is being amicable about this. I'm not exactly sure. I think they would prefer option B maybe. But this park has always been an exceptional park, brought in many, many more thousands of dollars for the community other than regular parks, and has been run so efficiently by FLA. And yes, leadership has changed with the world changing when one passing. But I think for my part, I would like us to continue to think of that as a very exceptional park, one that we're very fortunate to have, that it's run by a FLA that is a very good working with the school, with the city. So I just want to make sure that their expenses get so high that they have to put it on the kids again, and that we treat them like anybody else, because I just don't think that's the way it should be.
Just to add some background, so when I first started here, it's almost 12 years ago now, FLA did everything. They did the scheduling, they did the irrigation, they did the mowing, they did the dragging, they did everything. And that was that, in the back of your mind is that's FLA fields, right? Because they maintained it, that was their fields. Slowly as time gone on, in 16 we took over the irrigation, in 17 we took over the mowing, which we contracted out for 2 years until we got the equipment at Public Works. Then Public Works staff took over the mowing, and then, it's now by 26, or in 24, we took over the scheduling. 25, we do everything but the dirt work, and now in 26, city is gonna maintain, schedule, do everything. It's now 100% complete maintained by the city. So to the chair's point is, that's that change, is I'll call it FLA Fields just because that's what it always was, right? But it's really now Fenway Park, it's 100% maintained by the city. And yes, we still want to work with FLA, and we want to make sure they get their times and all that, but we're also doing 100% of the maintenance, 100% of the scheduling out there. So that's where that big change is that we have to try to recoup some of those dollars and be more competitive with other cities. And I think that's what Cal wants to do, that research and look in and say, okay, are we competitive? Are we charging way too little for time for field use? We don't also want to have FLA kids paying $2,000 to come play softball this summer. So I mean, that's where you have to find that happy point. But that is that biggest change, is that over the last 10 years, it's switched from 100% FLA maintained now to 100% back to a fully city park that's fully maintained by the city.
I think too, it's important for the commission to know, and certainly, we can have a conversation when FLA's here in more detail, but, it's, the reason FLA is what they are is to assist with these costs, right? The costs don't go away. So you're stuck with this. FLA is they're a great service to the youth sports community. But that's kind of why FLA's here. FLA's here too. They do their gambling, and they get proceeds from that to help with costs that go into these systems. So FLA is great. There's no question about that. There's no question that they provide great services and they serve our youth. But I think the purpose of FLA raising funds and having these students pay each family pays a fee to FLA to be a FLA member, right? They're paying those fees for FLA to raise funds cost, and what's happening is that the city is fronting those dollars, and that's kind of not the purpose of a complex like this, right? The complex should be paid for, and that's why FLA comes in, because they say, hey, we understand it's expensive, we're raising additional dollars to help with these costs. I think Commissioner Eckert, you are in the hockey world, right? Hockey goes for $240 an hour for ice. And that is player fees. The association might do some fundraising as well to assist with that, but those costs just don't go away. And we have to be very careful of saying, hey, they're great, so let's just pay for everything. I don't think that's a super sustainable model. We don't want to rip them off. We're not going to see any positive movement from getting these funds. What we're going to do is just say, we're recouping cost and making it a more sustainable model to be long-term. But we'll definitely work with FLAW in those discussions to make sure, yeah, we don't just price them out.
We use that $5 fee, could that be one what it was, a $5 or $10 fee that they were paying?
$10
$10
an hour.
Could that be raised up? I mean,
The hourly rate that that's what we'll end up entering discussion with them, yep.
It'll be good to hear what they have to say and
So, and
working together.
just right now, like the city, we figure between Cooling Camp and Fenway, it's about 190,000 plus between equipment, staff time, just general maintenance out there, right? So, if FLAW paid $28,000 this year and the city put $200,000 in this year for those spaces, they're getting a great deal out of that, right? They're not paying out of their ears for those spaces. So it's important to kind of know that number. If they end up paying, and this is just throwing a number out, let's say they pay 50,000, that's still, we're now adding services on, so our 190,000 turns into probably 275,000. I mean, just 250,000. So, you know, the gap, the city is putting forward a lot of resources.
Is the pricing, like, to be able to reserve the space the same across all renters, so to speak? So does FLAA pay the same as, say, a group coming from Blaine wants to reserve the fields
So right now,
rate, or is there an option to be able to have FLIA, you know, we're not trying to make a profit as a city.
Yep.
We're not trying to earn money, so I just need the bare minimum to operate and cover costs for the city, whereas, hey, people come in from outside, at that point, your rate is different to be able to reserve it so the city can earn some money, I guess, so to speak.
So currently, if you were just a person walking off the street that said, I want to book Field 1, you're going to pay $45 an hour for Field 1. FLA was paying $10 an hour, so they're getting a great deal. Yep, and there'll be room when we're looking at other policies, right? There's other cities that are doing this. The school district has a similar policy that we're looking at. You still build them in to that classification where they're still going to get a great deal. It's just, again, new times, right? Things are expensive, staff are expensive, equipment is expensive. That's one thing that our Public Works Department does very well is we give people the tools they need to get their job done and don't have to worry about things breaking halfway through the day, right? It's going to happen, but that's a lot of resources being poured into that, and we just have to be mindful of, you know, those expenses.
All right. Well, this is, we knew this was going to be a difficult issue, like you say, switching 100% to us take care of it. And I think a couple of things to keep in mind. I mean, we all want youth sports to thrive here. We know it brings in people, but also keep in mind that half the kids at FLA don't live in Forest Lake.
51% so based off of this year's numbers, 51% of the kids that participate in lacrosse, baseball, and softball are from Forest Lake. 49% come outside of Forest Lake.
And so, you know, how much should, and this is a council decision, how much should that support be? And then certainly FLA has resources. They grossed over 21 million in pull tab proceeds last year. And so there's, if we're going to get into a financial arrangement with FLA, we need to have open books so we actually see the resources. So, because we're talking about subsidizing these fields to the tune of $150,000. Well, we just talked about wanting a 3-acre park. How's that going to get built? How's that going to get maintained? So we've got to look at the full picture.
I agree, but I put those two in completely different packs. And I can go along with option A. I was going to prefer option two, or option B, but because I do hear a lot of collaboration between you, and I've sat here when the city was way against FLA, was city were kind of, and then FLA took it back, and so they've had a lot of back and forth, but it's always fell back on, this is a good opportunity for the city. Maybe 49% don't live here, but they do drive here and get gas and eat and do a lot of other things while they're here. So I don't think we want to lose the value that that complex brings in when we're in negotiation. But it sounds to me like you're working with FLA, and it would be very important for me to come back and they say, we're all on board.
One other quick history item too is that, right, FLA, being that that was kind of their housed system, they put capital money into that, right? So I think ideally you look at an opportunity to say, hey, if they can be paying the going rate for field usage at a deal, they don't have to maybe worry about the capital. That's something that we can kind of try to figure into. And that's based off of, hey, we start running more tournaments, you start bringing in more funding. There's there's an economic boost with running 10 more tournaments a year, right? There's those discussions to happen too. So it is just noted that FLA they had put capital out there over time. That's gonna likely shift as well now that we're fully taking care of that stuff. So let them pay the day-to-day, and then the city worry about the big picture.
So do we have a motion for either A or B?
I'll motion to ask the city staff to consider option A.
Okay. Motion by Sue, second by Tim for option A in the recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We have any easy items tonight?
This next one.
They're getting harder as we go.
I know we haven't been here 7 hours, but the clock says it's 2:30 in the morning.
Time flies, we're having fun.
So, I'll wait for you, Chair.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kyle. We got master plan, park master plan scope of services.
And we do have Josh here with Bolton and Mink, and I apologize for making him wait. I kind of thought maybe a couple of those points would go a little bit faster, but here we are now. So as discussed, we have our Parks Master Plan in 2022 sitting in draft. And part of that, to get that moving forward, is to reopen the items here within the scope of service to try to finalize this Parks Master Plan. And, Chair, as long as you don't mind Josh coming up and introducing himself.
Absolutely,
He can
Josh.
speak to some history, as he has
Welcome.
been around since the 2014 even. Is that?
It's been a while. Good evening. Josh Shields, Principal Landscape Architect with Bolton Mink. I do remember a number of faces from some of these previous plans. Commissioner Moorhead and I worked on that 2014 edition, and then I picked up the 2022, actually here, since I printed them. And the 2014 really set the basis on things, and then the 2014 I picked up when some staff went from Bolton and Mink over to Washington County. They had started this process, and I think Commissioner Gary, I think you were involved in this one as well as Commissioner Moorhead. This one from 2022 was really left unfinished, but it looked at demographics, updating the general goals, trying to get a sense of the facilities, which, we were looking at some of the figures from the developments. And there's a chart in here that talks about each of the parks in the community and how large it is. Also where it's located, and an appendix. Does also have an accommodation for school or non-city related facilities that do contribute to Parks and Recreation. But then there are some definitions for the different types of parks and kind of what that means. And it's based on the National Recreation and Park Association findings. So it's streamlining that information together. The biggest thing that I would say when I was brought in to try to wrap some things up is system recommendations. One of the biggest things that came out of that was the understanding that the 2014 plan developed the goals, the vision, did a lot of the categorization of parks, the data points, but it didn't necessarily streamline what's the commission do versus city staff versus council versus other entities. What are those partnerships? So it started to try to develop a little bit better organization of roles and responsibilities. That's what we started doing in that 2022 plan. There was a lot of change over lots of different entities, right? The commission saw some change, city staff saw some change, the world was going through a lot of change. So in the best interest of all of those, it was put on hold or set to the side. Dave and Kyle reached out to me, I think probably in the last month, to bring it back up since this commission has been reformed, getting through the paces, getting up to speed, and then looking at what I'm going to basically say is kind of shuffling them together, but in a finalized state. So you'd have one plan, but it's what you need in order to help with the decision-making from Abby's earlier discussion points. Like, what does it actually mean in the bigger system? Providing information to you as you're coordinating with different capital improvement discussions or having back and forth with city staff, and getting a better understanding of some of the funding sources that might be available to help build out the system. So what we had put together, which I'm assuming is an agenda packet item, should be a scope, and it's through Dave, Kyle, and I sitting down and kind of brainstorming with what we knew of the previous plans and what we thought you might be looking for. This is probably the first time you're seeing this, so I don't know how close we are to hitting the mark. We hopefully are in the ballpark, but we might be a little bit off. So we had a base scope of services that went through project coordination, current plan, review of recent studies of park improvements. I was out at Belts. You know, obviously there's been some work there in the last year that wasn't reflected in the 22 plan. Cedar also has some new playground facilities that wasn't in that. So just getting an idea of what has happened since we put that down in 2022. Getting that information updated. There was some public and agency engagement as part of that 2022 plan. And I'm going to say also city staff at that time had done some engagement prior to that plan. They had had some open houses, they'd had some focus groups. So we went back through, reviewed the notes from those engagement activities, and tried to make suggestions on items that we think might either benefit from getting a fresh opinion or a fresh look, or that maybe didn't really have a lot of participation and wanted to qualify the data. So that was the focus group surveys and discussions with this group, just to make sure that it's what you actually need and is going to provide the direction the city needs. And then finalizing the recommendations into that fully fledged plan. So that's task item 4. One thing that is an item under that is 4D. In 2024, the Department of Justice basically made I wouldn't say that it's a law, regulation for ADA documentation requirements. And that's really all the cities in the state of Minnesota, but really countrywide is not just looking at accessible ramps to be able to move from street, sidewalk, across, but really looking at legibility from a reading standpoint. So any document that is online available in a PDF format or online as a readable document, just make sure that it subscribes to those requirements. That's part of that portion 4, making sure that what's delivered to you is meeting all of those, and if somebody needs a screen reader, that they'd be able to actually pick up what they needed to out of the document. So that's the base. The other thing that we were looking at were some optional items, and I think the staff reported and indicated some of those as well. It's been a while since there've been engagement. The community's changed a little bit. So we thought a community open house might be appropriate at some point, just to get consensus that what the plan is suggesting is supported by residents and business owners. What we were looking at in 2022 really was focused on parks. There was an aspect of connectivity, but it really did not look at trail corridors or connections from that perspective. So rather than having it as part of the base, we separated a trail search corridor mapping update as an optional item. Where that really becomes important is when Public Works is looking at projects that are transportation system related and there's an opportunity to build in a trail or missing link. Oftentimes that's when those can happen. So it provides a little bit better direction on that. When some of the developments or opportunities for developments come up, if you know that you would like to get a trail connection through a tight spot and have it on a map, then that can be part of your opening negotiations along with park space. And then the city is required to basically update their comprehensive plan. I don't know if it's every 10 years, but every so often. So in some ways, there's an opportunity for some of this effort to kickstart what would be a requirement for 2028. So the hope is that we can pull a little bit additional effort maybe now that would put everything together so you could copy and paste it into the comp plan once that's ready to go, or at least for the parks and or trail system. So that was another optional item that we had included in there. So that pretty much hopefully brings you up to speed. That's the last, 11 years brain dump.
No, thanks, Joshua. So we've got the base proposal, and then there's 3 alternate options that we can discuss. I guess the question for staff is, budget-wise, would you have budget if we did all 3 options?
Yeah, so this would qualify for park dedication funding. So dedication that we've got that we take from the grad condos or whatever ones we've taken in the past, we have a healthy balance, a little over $1 million in there of park dedication dollars. So this would be used because you're using it to plan future parks, future usage. So it would qualify as an expense, so that there would be budget in there to afford that. And just to add on, B and C, you're gonna have to do that anyway. So in 2028, we're gonna tell you you need to do it. It would be nice if we had it done, so when then Abby goes, where is this stuff? We say it's already here in the plan and it's done with. And that price, Josh will tell you it'll go up to. So in 2 years, I'm sure that 12.5 and 2,600 is gonna be a different price as well. And just to have that tied in with your master plan, really honestly makes sense just to have it, get it, if you're gonna do the whole update, just get everything in there.
Questions for staff or Joshua? It's absolutely correct, Dave, that comprehensive plan, it's not a if, you have to do it. And I like the trail search idea because as we deal with issues like we started with tonight, with plats come in, knowing where we want trails in the future, they're becoming more important than actually parks in some ways, at least to some people.
Correct. It also helps with grants. If you have it on a plan showing that this is gonna be a trail, when you're doing a road, you can apply for a recreation grant showing that it's in your plan, that you're missing this link, and it really scores a lot of points, knowing that you've planned for this, researched this, and it's all part of that, our pedestrian facilities throughout the city.
And it certainly seems to make sense to have the community at an open house to get their feedback. Karen?
Well, I'm just always appreciative of Bolton Mank and the detail and the care that they put into their plans for us, because they do an excellent job of it and are very good at trail planning and trail finding money for trails. So I just, again, appreciate the work they do and find no,
We are looking for it would be a motion to recommend to the city council approve the scope of services park system plan, base services development fee of 28,500 plus options A, B, plus option D, which would be all the above.
be happy to make that motion.
Okay, Karen will make that motion. Second by Tim. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Joshua. Looking forward to working with you. All right, item 11, Kyle and Dave's park updates.
So we have, currently we have Belts that's getting wrapped up with the playground, right? Historically, Belts Park has also had a sand volleyball court, and the current plan is to put that back in. It's also maybe a good time to just have a discussion on park amenities. We have another park project coming up next year in Bayview. Just want some input from this commission on the ideas, or do we want to look at our system to see if any other parks pop out to put something like a sand volleyball court in? Historically, it's been at Belts, I believe, because location, I think the high school kids like to walk over. Now we have 3 high schools here, right? So, but just kind of some things to be considering, and before we put it in the ground, just to kind of discuss, is there, how does this commission feel? Does this commission feel like we should maybe look into some other areas to put that sand court, or just any other amenities that we have to do? I think it's just sand volleyball at Belts, correct? So just kind of open up to discussion on if we want to look into an alternative site for the sand volleyball. Does anyone feel they have any input on that?
I believe also the question is the ice rink there too. And if you looked at that map, so Public Works is gonna basically put 2 courts back, and then in the winter flood that, where that rink usually is. Usage-wise, there's not many people that use that rink. And we put about 1,000 hours in per rink of staff time to maintain it through the winter. So
I
which,
think the usage, the hours seem so inconsistent. By there, 8 o'clock at night, and there's people out dark. I don't know what hours are, but had regular hours to end it on, I think you'd get a lot of use out of it.
And I live down the street from there. Are happy is that I see all the families out there.
Yep.
Well, I feel like I see people skate. Now, it isn't like 20 or 40 people out there, but I see,
Yeah, it's nice because if you go out to Tower Park and kids are playing hockey, and if I'm trying to get my young kid to go learn how to skate, it's nice going someplace where people aren't shooting pucks and flying around, that I can give them a little helper and have them out there learning how to skate. That's how we started with our kids.
it's
We
so
use
wide
that.
open that people feel safe with their kids there. A lot of, you can see everything from the road. There's
Yep.
I think weather-related has caused problems in the past to not have it be used so much because it's
Right.
water. And so I think in the beginning, when we had better weather, it seemed for that, there were people out there all the time. And so when I looked today, I went out there and I thought, because I envision people using that, if the ice is there, pretty regularly. Is there just that one little road now, that one little strip of pavement that they can drive out to park there?
they can't drive out there, it's a path now. The Parks Commission or the city council voted down a parking lot, and now they park at the church and have
Parking
to
lot, but
walk.
we used to have a drive that they could go in. Is that where that big hole is that we have to make all the little people happy?
More where the asphalt is, the asphalt.
Yeah, they painted the parking, it's off the side of the road.
It'll be all on-street
Parks on
parking.
the road now.
Well, I realize that, but I'm saying before, we did have a larger part, because when people go in there and the ranger wasn't on duty, they could at least sit in their car and put their skates on the kids. And I didn't see any of that when I was there today. It seemed to me that now you're telling me they aren't even gonna use that one little piece of
No,
asphalt.
yeah, because it was kind of brought to council that they didn't want a parking lot in that park, so now
I'm thinking of a parking lot that was over here. I'm thinking where they were parking before over there.
that would have been where the parking lot was.
But
So
that's where
there's
that
us.
little hole is too. And of course, that's gonna always be a real problem for me, that I don't know if we had to do it there, if we wanted to do it there, if we're gonna make it pretty there. But that little indent, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's something to do with water, the holding pond. Never been there in all these years, and now because we put the other surface on the playground, is that why we were required to do that?
Because we put the pedestrian facilities in, which then triggered square footage, which then requires treatment, which also we made it to the size that just in case at some time we want to put a parking lot in there, we don't have to rip the entire park up again to build another storm pond, so it's sized correctly.
Dave, I think you got your feedback on the hockey rink.
Yep,
It's gonna be there this year for sure.
Yep, and that was this thing, it's not eliminating it, it was just a thought of, would you want it down at Lakeside Park, or would you want it at a
Right.
different area? If the consensus is, nope, keep it at Belts Park, we'll probably be coming back to and saying we need about $50,000 repairs at the warming house. Because we've been holding off on that, that was part of the rehabilitation of Belts.
Would it be at Lakeside Park? Where are you thinking?
The center circle, you know, we don't want it on the lake. It used to be on the lake and the ice is just, well, you saw last year how half the lake ended up in the park, but that's those options. If you have more traffic, that you use the park more year round, where you have a skating rink there and that your trails are shoveled, and you have a portable warming house that gets brought in the wintertime. Those are all discussions, but if the council or the commission is, no, 100%, we want it at Belts, then we don't even need to explore those options.
I just want to
What-
be sure that we have one.
Right. What are the discussions with the Forest Lake Hockey Association? Because I know they're talking about potentially getting ice at the VFW and a couple other sites, because they're really pushing that for the community, for the hockey association itself, but also it'd be available for the community, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I have 2 points. I'll answer that first. So the association, they started renting ice last year with the city at Tower.
Right.
Discussions are right now is that they're likely gonna rent like Monday through Thursday night, 5 to 9, one of the rinks at Tower. So they're gonna be a pretty heavy user, weather pending.
Right.
One other note that I want to mention, Commissioner Gary, you brought up the hours. So last year was probably the first year we had those warming houses consistently staffed. They were open 7 days a week, basically 12 to 9, all 7 days. That's the hours. We did have tracking done on that, and that's where we talked about the usage being low. We understand people drive by and see people, but we do track that daily usage when the warming house attendants are there. And that's the point, is that I mean, those numbers are pretty low compared to when you look at like Tower. Obviously, there's 2 rinks, right? But that's kind of, when we see that, and when Dave mentions we put a lot of man hours into that rink, that's just, those are the conversations we want to have. Is it location? Could that be a driver? And so just note that's why, right? We have those numbers tracked. I do have them week by week tracked, so we can certainly, you know, have another conversation about that. Again, this year, the rink's going to be at Belts. We will do our best to staff them 7 days a week, again, to have that consistency, and then we will still do the track. So we'll bring those numbers back to you guys in the late winter, early spring, and really do a over 2-year average. But just note that we do keep track of that, because again, that's a lot of resource going into those. The Hockey Association, yeah, they want ice, they need ice, and we know that, and we'll give them what we can.
It seems like this discussion though might a little bit premature if we're gonna be updating this master plan. Because there'd be a discussion of this is a classic example of what we want in each of these parks for facilities. But I think being, Dave, in your memo, it says the hockey rink's gonna stay there right now. We've got time then to, I think you're hearing loud and clear, we wanna have a hockey rink somewhere.
Yeah, I guess the only difference is if we're not 100% sure that we want it there, we won't put that sand volleyball. We would do that this fall. But if we don't, what was that?
Are you saying that we're not liking the sand volleyball there? Because I have a strong feeling about it being there and
We might not just put it there. We might put it back kind of where it was or put it in a different area. We're
Put it at
putting,
Belts.
we would put that sand volleyball court in the spot where it's next to the warming house. So then in the winter, you'd flood a path to the, so you don't have to walk on skates, through the grass over somewhere else and where the lights are set up. So we're kind of try to multi-purpose one spot instead of, you know what I mean? And if we're 100% sure that this is where we always wanted this thing to be, then we'd put the courts in this fall, at least get the sand hauled in, and then flood the sand. If we're not 100% sure, we would just flood it over the grass like we have done every other year, and then talk about this more, which is fine too. Then, it's not like sand is super expensive, but it's also cost enough and the labor to put it all in if we decide later we want it moved.
So the volleyball is staying at Belts though.
The volleyball would stay at Belts, but we'd have to decide exactly where we want to put it. If we want to keep the rink there, then we'd put it where that red rectangle is. And if we don't want the rink there, then that's up for debate. Do we want to kind of put it back where it was somewhere else to open up that green space? Back to the whole master plan thing of how you want final, we got the top tier of Belts done. Now you're down to the bottom tier of how we want that to look.
Does that baseball field have baseball games on it?
So baseball will not use that field, and softball says they can't use it because it's too small, which it could be used, but they choose not to.
It's a nice neighborhood field.
Yeah.
It's a skin field. And you see families going up,
Practices happen there.
Yep.
The reason I ask is could put the volleyball court right there, then you've got, volleyball and you got, their little kids, they're playing t-ball. They're probably not gonna hit them, but they,
And that's kind of why we want to have this discussion, because once we put something in, it's going to be really hard to move it, right? So that's why we want this overarching conversation of 100% the rink's there, volleyball court's going there, all right, this is where we're going to do it. If it's kind of like, hey, let's see what the rink usage is after another year of getting consistent hours. If we're getting 30, 40 people a week at Belts, which is kind of what our numbers are saying, we're averaging about 40 people a week. Tower, we're averaging 220 plus. So when you look at those numbers, that's a pretty big gap. Is it smart to have it there? There's two rinks at Tower, and one has hockey boards, so it's painted red line, blue lines, and one is more often, just can skate around. So there are still recreation skaters at Tower. Yes, you see usually two pickup games going on. But just even the fact people do come down and just skate circles down at Tower without stick and puck, you're still getting that recreation usage. And that's just what we want to, again, have a good in-depth conversation, because once we put stuff here, it's going to be hard to move it.
are the lights being improved?
Are the lights what?
Are the lights being improved at the Belts at the rink?
Yeah, so the little Magic 8 Ball that got taken down because that's where the storm pond is now. So there'll be something that'll be attached off the building now, LED, so it'll be brighter than
I
usual.
guess that was one of the other things is that, the lights at the tower are nice and bright. You don't even have to know there's a rink there to go, there's something there that needs light. And at Belts, the light's been dark, so even on some nights that it's been open, you don't really know that.
It'll be improved, but it'll be temporary, just like everything else. Because as you 2 years ago, we were going to be putting a $500,000 pavilion there with year-round bathrooms and a warming house and all that stuff, and then that all got scaled back. So maybe the best solution is if we're working with Josh, we're going through this master plan through the winter, right? We just stick with what we did last year, put it on the grass, do like we've done every other year, and hopefully through the winter, by spring, we know where we want to put the volleyball court, we won't know what we want to do with all that. Maybe, and talk through location, all that stuff.
How's that sound?
I would agree.
So continue,
I-
continue as you've been doing, and we'll have discussion during the winter.
And my discussion right now is for the winter, because when you're tracking that, have you tracked how many days it could be open because it's water and not ice? And you're not putting that in the whole scheme of things, so overall, when you say there's 30 or
Still-
40 families.
It's
and-
still relative to tower. I mean, if it's,
But see, we've always been taught tower is hockey, and hockey has no trouble finding people to go over there. But Belts was always the family neighborhood, family get-togethers.
no, I get that. I'm just saying if the rinks are wet, you're gonna see a drop in usage at tower just the same as you're gonna see at Belt, so
With
it's.
hockey, I think they make things do when there's water, but families are.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would
It
say
doesn't
no.
work too well.
No, I would say
Alright,
you
so
probably
I-
have some
I'm just
kids.
saying,
2 years
to be
ago, we
fair-
had 2
to be
years of
fair,
usable ice. I mean,
We've had some really bad winters for that ice rink, and I just don't want to have that taken away, because I think it's an ideal spot for it.
Well, it brings a bigger question, do we even have outdoor rinks anymore, the way Minnesota winters are?
Well, that's true too, but
So,
at least it
that's,
should
I
be
think
counted
that's
still
actually,
gets cold.
I think that's the discussion to have is, how many hours can you use a rink in Minnesota these days outdoors? So, that's another,
big thing.
so, all right.
You figure we spend.
So I know we got a few more big items to get through, so you think you got enough feedback, you're gonna continue as is, and
Yep, well, won't change anything. We'll add some temporary lighting off the building and then wait for further direction in the spring.
Kyle, you have Arts in the Park,
Yeah, I know this will
2026.
be real exciting to talk about, right? It's, September, and we're gonna talk about June. Just, when it comes to planning this type of event, right, we gotta start now. Just wanna throw out some proposed dates, and talk a little bit about what we're doing. Yes, it's operations, but we also, wanna be able to say, hey, we've had an open discussion about these things. One of the biggest things is, booking music, you want to get that done. So we want to, have a discussion about updating the agreement with our music contract, so he can start booking those shows. And what we'd probably do is try to have this done by, or at least updated the best we can, and over to legal. I would assume we'd have to send it to legal. And we'd probably be doing that next month. So we're already looking at November to likely bring that back to the commission to recommend approval to council. So we want to just make sure we have that discussion now and just kind of openly discuss. We posted our event dates. We are looking at running over that 4th of July, that day being on, I think, a Saturday now. We've had conversation internally. We feel like we can do the Tuesday before and after. But that would also mean a little bit delayed start. This past year, we started June 2nd or 3rd, the 3rd. So there's a little delay in the start, but it's still 11 weeks, and that's what we ran this year. There's some vendor rate discussion, and then also maybe a business partnership opportunity that we want to pursue as well. So just, again, open for discussion. We want you guys to have some discussion around that, ask us questions, and go from there.
Ask why the change in the date, because we're going to add those two before and after the 4th? Why do we have to start later?
It's just overall dates, right? So if we were to start the same, it would be, make it a 13-week series. And it's, I think, historically been a 10, 11, 12-week series. There's, every week you add, there's substantial cost involved in that. So you look at flooding out each week if you keep adding weeks versus if you just try to narrow it down. I mean, I think eventually we'd like to try to make it a 10-week series just to make it a nice round. And that way you can, again, have more money to spend each week versus divvying up everything.
Brings me to another, the vendor rates. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have had any calls, but I've had two. It went out to the vendors as a proposed amount, but it hadn't come here first.
Just to clarify, we opened up the 2026 application for the vendors, and we just want people to know there's a proposal out there. So it's best practice to get an application out to those as early as possible, so we get all the vendors that want to be there. There's something to be said about you get, more, better vendors when you put it out early enough for them to plan.
And that's fine, but how much are you saying on each vendor would we be raising the rates?
So
To what?
the food truck was $550 this year. We propose it to go to $650. The general vendor was $200. We propose to go to $250. The food market was $100. We propose to go to $250. Staff doesn't really see a difference in the, whether you're a general vendor or food, other than just the bylaws that they have to follow. A vendor's a vendor down there. Understanding that some people maybe don't make as much as others, but we don't really see the difference of if you're selling woodwork or homemade bread, it's a spot, right? It's a spot at the event.
The vendors, the vendors that went up $150, supposedly, the reason was that we want to have bigger bands. And that would be on the backs of the vendors again to have that additional raise in money. That's a big jump from what they were paying to what they'd have to pay. And the couple that have only talked to me have said, you don't make enough money to put up and then you've added liability back in again.
There's no added liability to the vendors. That's food truck related that they'll have to provide. We did some researching into that more with our city attorneys and got the blessing to say they don't need to have their separate liability.
So they misread that then because they thought that they.
It's a food truck and vendor app, so I mean, there's.
Kyle, these rates are for all 11 events.
Correct.
So you're talking
$22 a night.
$22 an event, a night. Okay.
There is options to add, like this business booth, to add a 3-day, 5-day option. Obviously, that's just more staff time to organize, but we can certainly go down that road. I'm not opposed to it. It's just, again, it's you're probably looking at having to bring on somebody else to help with organization of it, just because it's going to be a lot of moving parts.
Why are you looking at making it fewer weeks?
Fewer amount of weeks.
I was just thinking, I think people look forward to the start of Arts in the Park. So is
In the break around the July 4th, because that's what they were saying, they're gonna do around July 4th, starting early.
Yeah, so this year there's not a change, but I think you're referring to in the future. So I would say it's just, again, it's just similar to Belts, right? Where you're looking at your visitors. Working with our music contractor, Woody McBride, I usually check in with him each week to give me an estimated, attendance. And it's always those first 2-3 weeks are they're pretty well attended, but they're very low compared to what we see throughout the summer. So there's just the June 3rd, school is still going on, right? And then that first week, people are coming out of school, it's vacation time, it's figuring out the summer plans, the camps, and there's just a lot of added things happening. So I think there's just what happens if we push it back into June, then obviously you have so far to go back into August, and then if you do have the 4th of July land on a Wednesday, you're probably not running. So that would be, again, if you did that 10-week, you start the middle of June, you get your 1-week break there around the 4th, and then you still are ending at the end of August.
Could it be a compromise? You had said they'd have 2 at 4th of July, that's what they did this year, but it's technically only always been 1. So could we add 1 week back to the front and then only have, because they're used to a break on the 4th of July, it could be the before or after. But it would let them start a little earlier, go back to the pattern they've been used to. I don't know, maybe a compromise.
Make the decisions. You tell us what to do.
Well, I'm just wondering
No, I
what they think, because
Yeah, I think it should
I guess,
just,
yeah, if we're gonna talk
be every
like,
Tuesday.
I would I would look at going back to say June 8th, I mean, June 16th.
And if, the
When does school end this next year?
and if the 4th lands on a Saturday, just do the Tuesday before and Tuesday
Right,
after, because people
right.
look forward to it even.
Exactly.
And that's our plan right now.
Yeah.
If we added the week, that's adding another week on, and then you're gonna have to, charge vendors accordingly, and then plan for another entertainment cost. So,
Another little
Oh, that-
question.
But I
that
think, what was it, they had like 2,000 people there for corn?
over, yep.
Down there, throughout the summer. you know, Crowds seem to be larger than they were like last. So it seems to be growing, up to run the vendors down the sidewalks a little bit further and things like that. So I mean, as long as the thing is growing and you're not losing people, I would think you'd kind of take it.
We only have so many dollars to spend though.
Yeah, you
So
have to
every
pay
week
a
you add,
music.
you have to get another band, you have to staff it, you have to figure out, and you have to adjust rates, that you guys can make that decision, but
It's a moving target. You won't get it right? You're not gonna get everything right. The idea is keeping it 11 weeks for just, we understand the budget based off of that. We're trying to right-size, I guess, what we feel is the appropriate fees, and that was all kind of based off the 11 weeks. But, again, that's why we're having this discussion, right, for that feedback.
I don't know that. the
One
plan needs to be
interesting
changed.
feedback I got from, again, the two vendors. We had those large crowds for Johnny Cash. We're so excited and thrilled. Those people, when they come, they sit down for the concert. And the two vendors had said, you just watch. I never paid attention to that until they mentioned it. Those people that come for those big events, the corn, they sit there and they don't move. And so the vendors don't really get an advantage from having a large crowd. I never thought of that before. But looking at especially the Johnny Cash, we had such a good group. They were entertained and they were there for the entertainment, and we want to have big bands, but I think we also have to adjust the difference between how much a vendor can make and how much can be put upon them, how much the city is willing to put into a huge event like that for every Tuesday, because it certainly brings in a lot of happy people.
So let's go through these things one by one so we can get direction. So on event dates, what is the commission's desire for direction to staff? Stick with what he's proposing, June 16th, 11 weeks, or would somebody like to make a change to that?
I propose to just leave it as is.
June 16th? Okay. Anybody else?
11 weeks.
I mean, I like June 8th.
I do too.
Okay,
And then taking a break 1 week?
1 week at the 4th of July.
Well, have
before
you
or
ever looked
after?
at having sponsors, like someone could sponsor the music or someone could?
Forest Lake Ford sponsored $15,000 this past year.
I think we got to stick with 11 dates is the date.
Yeah.
So it's,
Well, I mean, if you're doing
For
the 4th of
budget-wise.
July weekend, you've got a lot of people coming into the city because you got American Legion putting up the,
Both sides of that. 4th of
right? So
July
if you're gonna have that foot traffic anyways, having an arts in a park during that 4th of July week, instead of taking the week off, it gives that much opportunity to those vendors to have that traffic.
so you support the 16th start then?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. So we got a consensus, the 16th start with the 11
Consensus,
weeks?
We should take a vote.
Okay.
You guys can kind of do a vote amongst yourselves, but it's not going to be like an official,
Right.
right? So, but yeah, feel
I think
free to.
you're Tim and Karen and support the 8th. You too, Melissa?
That would be June 9th.
June 9th.
Yep.
Okay.
Personally, I
Agree.
support
So then I think you have the Melissa, Sue, Aaron, and I say the 16th is fine. And go right through the 4th, don't take a week off.
Yep.
Contracts, I think music, that's you're going to get as good bands. It's a catch-22, Karen. If they don't have good bands, nobody shows up.
Or if they show up and then they don't really support the vendors. I think we've got.
How about
I don't think we should worry about that. I think Woody does a great job of choosing.
Correct. Correct. So vendor rates, any comments on the proposed rates?
Why 150% increase on food,
So
the food
when,
market?
when I came in last year, I didn't have a ton of experience with this type of event. Looking at, so we did raise the general vendor fees, up last year. So 2024, I believe they were 150. We bumped them to 200, just because we knew that was well below, the norm, I guess, across for events like this. And then so we didn't touch the food market just because we weren't sure, but then doing more research, seeing the event happen, talking to more people that run these events, just say, a vendor's a vendor. Certainly you want to have that category difference because you're going to have cottage bylaws that they're going to have to follow. So you want to know who's coming into your event and who's going to have to follow those for who applies it to, or who it applies to. But it's really skipped it last year because we weren't sure, doing more research. It's a vendor is a vendor, your price is your price.
I'm just curious because the next agenda item is to look at the farmer's market here at City Hall. If I'm going up in price there, am I not gonna do food at Arts in the Park and just try to push for the farmer's market? If I'm a vendor trying to sell food, like farm goods,
I think,
fair goods.
just a quick example to share, we had like a vendor, they were new to Arts in the Park, they sold granola. She now has a drop site in Forest Lake once a month because of all the customers that came through. So it's not always about what do you make back at Arts in the Park, it's about the connections you're making there. So I think there's a lot of vendors that will say, we want to be at Arts in the Park because there's 1,500 people that walk through, right?
I mean, we're looking at $250, but every time. So I know that as a vendor, I've sold many things, and you go in any a vendor place that has that many people walking through. To your point, some of them aren't going around and looking at the vendors, Karen, but they're still coming there and seeing them. There's still the opportunity for them to be walking around. So for $22 to have that space, that's still an amazing deal.
So you're thinking $22 an event, a Tuesday.
Okay, each time. So this is for all the events in total.
Oh, so that's not per, that's
Not per night.
That's for
no.
all 11 weeks.
I was wondering how
it's-
they make money.
It's well,
That's a lot.
$22 a night.
it's well
Okay,
below
so they pay
the,
and they've reserved their spot for the entire.
It's-
Well, that's the other problem I was just gonna bring up. You know
That
as
makes
well
more
as
sense.
as I do
I was-
that, excuse me, I was there every Tuesday, and the vendors that are still unhappy with being moved from their spot that they've been in, and I think that's something that maybe the commission doesn't understand or know that's happening.
But that's an operational issue, Karen. That's
Well,
not a policy issue for us.
But it isn't a direction to our,
so can I share something, Chair? So we sent out a survey to all the vendors. They've all had a chance over a week to respond. We've only gotten 20 response as of now, and we're averaging about 75% on the satisfied, very satisfied. And that includes with booth location, how satisfied were you at your booth location? Right now, we have a 70% saying satisfied, very satisfied. So while there are 4 people that are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, you're talking 20% versus 75%. So there's going to be people that aren't happy, but the general body speaking, all the questions that we're asking, we're at about a 70 to 75% satisfied or very satisfied.
Not that you get, there may be the best location and everybody wants it, right? But, as far as locating next to each other.
So last year, the application did include a request for a booth. This year, I removed that request. That's a really hard thing, right? If I give 5 people a booth they want, but then that 6th person wants something that I can't give them, how do I now explain that I can't give you that? So it's across the board to say it's a fair chance for everybody at this point, so we don't have to explain to group Y, you're not getting your spot, but they got their spot. So there's a difficulty thing there. We've talked to some event people that will put a price dollar on a spot. You think this spot's good? Well, it's gonna cost an extra $100. I don't know that we want to do that right now, but certainly that's what people are doing to fix that, to say, hey, if you want that front corner spot, that's a premier spot, you're gonna pay more for it. So then there's just no question of why did they get that spot.
Condition again that I just ask for some consideration for these people that are out there, that there's a difference if someone's been there for every single Tuesday since it started to someone coming in brand new. So I can understand the difference, and I just hope that we can somehow work into that whether it be a 5-year, or a 10-year, or a 20-year that they've been there, that's an answer to why they're still in that same place. If everybody else stays coming, you gradually get your spot.
That's just another thing to track, right? How do you track that? Who tracks that? Where does that stay? Does that, where does it get recorded? So that way if, that's another complicated coordination of keeping that information.
Well, going back to the rates, let's make a call on that. Are we comfortable with the proposed rates for 2026? Okay, everybody's comfortable with that.
Not me.
Karen's not, okay. And then the business partnership, I know last year you had a significant partnership with Ford, and you're gonna be exploring other ones there, Kyle, so good work on that. All right, farmer's market, let's jump into that.
Again, just really similar to the Arts in the Park memo we just went over. The farmer's market, we said we'd bring back some proposals for the commission to review. And I did attach the map, and I don't know if everyone can see that, but we just did a layout of what we're kind of thinking here at City Hall, the proposals for Saturday mornings. Feel like it's a great open lot to use, right? You look at Arts in the Park, it's a great park. Would love to run it there, but there's a lot of other things going on in the park on the weekends anyways. So to have just a wide open space to bring people, you're right off of 61, easy access for people to find whether they're coming into town that aren't here. This is kind of our general proposal there. So again, there's farmer markets that start in May, and there's people that have flowers and plants that come, but most people are, I think, after vegetables and stuff like that. And I think we had a couple vegetable people, our corn food truck and our veggie stand for Arts in the Park, and they didn't show up till almost the end of June, July, because they didn't have anything. So I think this is just the safe route, and then most people run it through as long as you can. You might have to cancel your October weeks, and that's fine, just depending on weather and how many people still have products, but that's the proposal right now.
Hey, to report, I love the idea.
Karen's on board.
Thank you, Karen.
Be there to help.
What kind of a cost is gonna be incurred by the city to put this on? It just looks like you gotta put up some barriers, and there's not much to it.
It's gonna be, we feel like it's gonna be minimal, promotions, right? We're gonna wanna promote it. I have the idea of maybe working, Karen may or may not like this, but with like the Rotary, they've expressed interest of maybe they'll be on site on Saturdays and help, where you're not using necessarily city staff. Certainly, we might have to be on call or something or there for the first couple weeks, but once it runs, just like Arts in the Park, people get in a rhythm and figure out where they go and set up, where do they park, and all those items. So we do think it's gonna be, it's gonna be some resource, but marketing promotion, you might say $500 to $750 or something to really pump it out.
Well, and will it be just a yearly like this summer?
Right now, we feel like we wouldn't want to charge to get it kicked off and moving. Maybe you have those food trucks that can kind of help supplement some costs. We'll explore that to see if they pay a small fee to be there. But we really feel that, for the first couple years, it's justifiable to not charge, just to try to get the vendors there, get it going. It's a risk for everybody, right? But that's kind of the thought right now. it would probably be like 8 to noon. Forgot to put that in there, sorry, but 8 to noon is the idea right now. Yep, standard morning, Saturday market time. You beat the heat, I think, is the goal.
And I know you mentioned I wouldn't be happy about Rotary, and I will be if the commission is asked first, if they have time, because I would like the community to get to know all of the commissioners. And that's a good way for them when, and maybe they don't want to help, you know, I'm just lonely and have nothing else to do in my life. But, so if they don't, and we don't have enough people,
Karen will do it.
grant, you know, we can, but I just would like, you know, the commission to be invited first to fill the spots, and if they can't, we'll work on getting more.
I think my opinion is we want the commission out and about, right? That's why we have these types of events too. So we want you guys there. My vision would be, we wouldn't want you tied to a responsibility necessarily. If you wanted to stop by and help, but more just to be there, be a face, walk and talk around, or if you get tied down to a spot, it just seems like you're a worker there, right? But always want there to be an open door policy on, we want you guys there, we want you to be present if you want to be and you can be.
I think you got positive feedback on the farmer's market, Kyle, and looking forward to it. All right. Dave, Public Works Building Steering Committee.
As most of you are probably aware, they're going through a schematic design now for the new Public Works facility. It's a big building and quite a big dollar sign that'll be quite impactful for the city. It was brought up by City Council that they would like to form a steering committee to have members from different parts of city functions to be part of this, to have weigh in, to be able to come back and report back of, you know, what's going on with this project. Since, I mean, really, it's probably the biggest project the city has ever had, just our dollars. So they wanted one representative from the Parks and Recreation Commission. It was brought up that Commissioner would be a great person for this role. We're not recommending that. We're just saying that was brought up, but it's up to this board who they would like to have on this committee. It would involve some time-to-time meetings with city staff and the architect and contractor. Really the roundabout A. If you have any other questions about kind of what that would be, if you've ever been on a steering committee or not, but it's more or less providing input, knowing what's going on with the facility, and then, you know, representing Parks and Rec too, because there's proposed trails, a possible dog park, you know, all these other kind of amenities that, you know, that's why we want that voice from Parks.
Better representation.
All yours,
than
Don.
Don, if he would
Thank
be
you.
willing to do it, that'd be great.
Thanks.
I don't want to do it.
These are fun
You're already
projects.
on one, you might as well be on another one, right?
If he didn't want to be, he's volunteered.
Yeah, we kind of nominated him.
Sounds like Karen's making the motion that's needed then.
Yep,
All right,
well,
and
nominate, do I have to make a motion to have you
This,
be on
this
the
one
board?
has to come, if you make a motion to recommend, then we can bring that back to council, that this one has been recommended by this
Here in
group.
the staff report.
Oh,
You can just fill my name in then, and
Yep.
so Karen's making the motion in your staff report. We'll keep it simple, and Aaron a second, and all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. CIP, Dave, Park CIP.
So I just regurgitated this memo from in August, and we kind of decided that the commission wanted to take some time to look at those spreadsheets that I handed out. Hoping you took some time to look at that. Really just willing to entertain some questions. I mean, and really our biggest thing is supporting, if we want to support or not support those projects that are coming up in 2026. Those would be the most important ones. As a commission, we haven't really dove into CIP and why they are where they are, and long-term, that may move around with this Parks Master Plan as well. There may be stuff added, there may be stuff moved in different years, but just because of age, Bayview Park would be the one proposed for 2026, as Manor was last year, so Bayview. And then the other really big ticket item would be that irrigation at Castlewood. And I think even city staff has some questions on whether or not that should go, and maybe some more time should be spent on that project itself. Just looking into different options, or what that golf course needs. I know if you talk to Henry, who presented here in, I believe, May or June, he may argue that, well, it's horrible that he has to go on hand turn on sprinklers. Golf cart paths are more important to him, that golfers can be out after the rain or in the spring and the fall. So aligning with foursome golf as well, and making sure our priorities line up with theirs, and that irrigation is old, it's original, it's from, I mean, it's on borrowed time, but it's also a massive expense. It's a,
Not gonna get any cheaper, but.
correct.
Yep. There are little check marks, and then it says $158,000 below that. I don't know where that 158,000 comes.
Huh.
Dave's bonus, or? I'm kidding.
You know what, I think, I wonder if if I add up all the rest of them, if that's, so it might be tying in capital equipment in there.
Okay.
I believe,
It comes from somewhere, but it just isn't shown on that.
yeah, I can clarify that, but the way I'm looking, I think there's a mower and some other parks, things that get technically not in parks, they'll get repaid through the general fund, and it's a math. Just like Lakeside Park, you see $500,000 for the Veterans Memorial on page 1. That's grant dollars and that's memorial dollars, so you have to show it as expense, but you look on the revenue side, it cancels itself out. Yep.
And that was another, and thank you for mentioning the mowers and things, because reflect having to purchase the mowers and for the baseball fields that we just talked about earlier.
Yep,
Is
so
that
there's a separate fund, we call this the 203 fund, the park fund, and then there's a 401 fund, that's capital equipment, that's where we buy fire trucks, police cars, dump trucks, mowers, all that other equipment comes out of there, so that is in that fund.
Dave, I gave you and Kyle some feedback on Bayview, and there's no doubt that part, like you say, it's 20 years old and needs upgraded. The question is do you hold off and wait till the master plan is updated, decide if that's the right priority or not? It's one of those pocket parks, right, that is.
Yeah, that one's about an acre, so right now it has a playground, a little over a half basketball court and a parking lot in it, and a trail that goes through the middle. And I know in the master plan, they listed deficiencies off of what people would like, and then we can wait. Kind of like we did with Manor, and try to bid it out again in April. It's just Manor right now is sitting there and it probably won't get installed until October, and
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
that'll be the shame of Manor, is it's gonna get installed and it'll be, end of October by the time it's finally finished off with the mulch and all that, and, it's great, it'll be done, be ready for next spring, but you don't get to kind of,
Winter of wear and tear already.
And with saying that though, is some of these things just gotta get done. We can't this plan isn't gonna be suddenly, everything's gonna have a completely figured out. Joshua, because you can help us here.
Yeah, I'll just mention one thing quick, thank you. So the master plan will be overview, like the overall park system. It's not necessarily gonna get into each individual park. So there is gonna be a little bit of a, let's call it a rubber band in terms of things that have to get done or that have been in place for can't remember, what I had for files was Bayview in 2010 for playground equipment, so it's, you know, it's old. There's from others, but some of those things, if they're a safety issue or getting into things where it's health,
Yeah.
you know, health and safety of the public, or just need to be updated because things have changed, don't let the overall plan hold this commission and this body up from making decisions that you need to make.
Thanks. Yeah, so Dave, I would support moving, and I mean, I sent that to you in email, support moving ahead with that Bayview. The golf course is, that irrigation system is, talked is, just some more analysis is needed out there, and I think there's some policy decisions the council's gonna need to make on that, for that golf course, but
You know how the talks are coming between the foursome and the city?
So we've had our legal review, and their legal is just finishing up review. It just got in a weird part of time where our legal took a little while and then theirs did. So I would hope by the October meeting, we'd be able to have a recommendation to council to extend that contract with Florissant. Usually it's like May by the time we, you know, it expires in December and it takes us till May to get the agreement. So if we can get it done 2 months early, that'd be fantastic.
perfect.
I guess what I hear is full support for doing a reconstruction at Bayview. And then some hesitancy on Castwood may still need to be done, but probably not in 26. We might need to spend a little more time on that. And I'd like to, with Bayview, then I'd like to probably in October kind of at least give a background what's there and get some feedback from the commission of maybe kind of give you an idea what are amenities around it, location where other parks are, just to try to pick the commission's brain of what you'd like to see there. And Kyle and myself and Kevin Warner, our parks foreman, would start trying to lay out a park would, you know, and try to get a layout done November, December, and then, you know, then put that out for RFP and hopefully January, February, and hopefully get construction going right away in the spring instead of.
Hey, Dave, is there anything, you know, like for working on the golf course for that irrigation system? You know, does the PGA or, you know, organizations like this have money set aside or grants or, you know, set up for, you know, golf courses or?
For the youth.
You know, like in hockey, you've got ice castles. you know, you can go
Different
ice castles
funding
and,
besides
you know, help build arenas and
taxpayers.
whatever else. Is it out there?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I've ever looked into it. It's a great idea. I think it's worth looking into. Kyle may have looked in it in the past, but.
There's like recreation grants out there that, and what's helpful is when we have these conversations with those plans laid out, as staff can prepare, right? So we would like to say, you know, grants typically they're done early in the year and they're going to be for a 2-year window or something. So when we know that we don't want to apply for the grant, then all of a sudden not have support of the project, right? So we know that we have support of a project, then we're going to start saying what's out there, what can we apply for that would fall into this window of time that we can go grab. So that's the importance of having these things laid out in early on discussions, is it allows us time to go seek those out. So that, I mean, there's recreation grants out there. And we just, once we know, we can count on that project.
I guess that was the
Well,
thing I was
just-
kind of
just to
thinking,
pursue
if
it,
you
right?
had like, you know, PGA or LPGA or whatever that would, you know, trying to encourage people to get involved in the sport, and then this is, you know, golf courses, you know, or even if there's, you know, I don't know, irrigation people would have. Equipment, you know, something along those lines. Just kind of thinking outside the box for, because it is money.
Talk shocked from the backlash of the building got made, and then that valves and that whole thing. So I think if we can come back with, there are these grants that we're
Right.
looking at, there are things that we can do to supplement some of that. It's not gonna be on back to the taxpayers completely.
Yep.
It helps us in that delivery to
Right.
naysayers.
And that is still our own recreational program that we have that's making money. So
Yeah.
they sent their August reports and they're $30,000 ahead of last year at this time. So it's, but, I mean, the clubhouse was contentious, but that is really,
That's
has
a
jumped,
story that needs to be told.
has jumped what they're doing there. Yep.
All right,
So what happens per the contract, they're guaranteed $50,000 to make money, and then anything after 50, we split 50-50. So if they make $100,000, the city would get a check from Foursome for $25,000. Last year, we got a check for $10,000.
all right, so let's, it's 3:45. Staff updates. Any staff updates we haven't covered?
Just, I guess, I don't know if it's good news per se, it's not, but we had some vandalism out at Fenway Park, so I don't know if that word got out, but there was just some folks that decided to drive out there on those multi-use fields, do some damage, run over some irrigation heads, so that's a major bummer. You know, I guess if you hear anything out there being talked about, you know, let us know if anyone has a lead on anything, but it is kind of a bummer and a setback, those fields. Were just, I mean, they're looking just unreal. So kind of a bummer, but it could be a lot worse, but there's still some damage out there.
Are there any cameras out there?
Not yet.
I mean, is it like based off of this recent event, is that something being discussed or?
So FLPD are putting flock cameras out. Probably heard of what's the license plate readers and all that stuff they're putting. One will be at Fenway Fields, but it's just not up yet. They're putting around, there'll be one at Lakeside, one at Fenway Fields, and another, I believe, 15 or so around the city. Depending how that goes, we may add more cameras in parks or public spaces, right? The one at Lakeside will be phenomenal for 4th of July and Arts in the Park. They can see a person's face at 1,500 feet. They can zoom. I think that'll cut down on issues and vandalism and all that stuff in these places when the word gets out that step foot in there, they're gonna know exactly who you are, so.
I had Belts Park grand reopening got postponed from September 11th to Tuesday, September 30th. So I'll send out an email note to everybody about that. It's, all the details are the same. It's just gonna be that date change. So you guys are obviously invited and we would like you out there. That's a really big deal for the community, but I'll get you guys an email this week yet, just sharing those details, spread that word. It's really shaping up like the park. I mean, they were putting the base layer, that's what the holdup was, right? The base layers couldn't get down, so they for sure had one layer down. I think they even had another today that I saw, or yesterday. So that, we should be good to go for that.
Perfect weather, 80-degree weather was perfect timing to put that surfacing
Yep.
down, so that actually timed out perfectly for that.
Hometown holiday, we are, I would say, almost full-fledged planning for that. There's a lot of details that are repeat, but that's a chamber and city partnered event. So I will work closely with the chamber to get these details finalized as we approach. That's the first Friday in December, so December 5th. That's our tree lighting ceremony, so another event that you might want to mark off. We're, yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be another fun year for that. And then lastly, we'll be posting warming house attendant positions very soon. So just something else to maybe help spread the word a little bit, and just, like I said, we really want, we talked last year, our goal is 7 days a week, right? We want staff out there for those warming houses. Public Works staff during the day, during the week, they can have those things kind of eyes open and open up pretty early, but then those evening times, we want to have those staff 7 days a week, which we did last year at both Tower and Belts.
They have to be.
I think ideally 16 can drive, right? That's the biggest probably hurdle, is making sure we have somebody that can get there and not rely on somebody else driving them. I don't,
I was just gonna say, I would reach out to the Forest Lakes Mallards, because part of their program with the players is community service. So if you're looking to fill spots at an ice rink, that might be a perfect example for a community.
that's a great idea. Thank you. That's all I have for staff updates.
Dave, anything?
Al didn't mention that he made the paper at the groundbreaking for the Vets Memorial, so make sure you take a look at that picture. They're moving right along. They got utilities in, and they're starting to put that together. So that should be planned to be all in except for that center sculpture by October 31st. So they're moving pretty quickly on that.
All right. Parks and Rec Commissioner updates. Anybody have anything? Aaron, Karen?
I just say again how unhappy I am with that little hole in the beautiful Belts Park. And I know he's been out looking, Kyle's been out looking for ideas, and some ideas are like some kind of grass that's supposed to make me happy. But I don't know if there's any way that we can get rid of that. I mean, it is the base of our beautiful park.
We will get you the Watershed District phone number.
Oh, I love that, because they're gonna tell them about the little flies and everything that are happy. But I don't know if there's anything we can do, but certainly something has to be done. It can't just lay in there with that.
Say, Karen, what you can think of it is a little skating rink, a junior.
With no,
All right.
good try, Tim.
Noted. All right, Sue, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay, Tim? All right, Melissa?
I did have one thing. I was over Friends near Cooling Camp, and there are, outside of the two fields, they have like a pitcher warm-up, that wood that's like sticks up this far out of the ground. And, they're there during the winter and see that a bunch of kids, they ride their snowmobiles around there. Now with the fences up there, Steve, the husband, is really afraid that somebody's gonna hit that and like launch. So we just wondered, is there any way to put something up in the wintertime that just says, this is a, you cannot want to hit with a snowmobile. They shouldn't be riding their snowmobiles through there, but they do.
Yeah, we can put up either some even just driveway markers or something like that around it, just to let people know that there's something there.
There's something there, yeah, he just asked about that. Then they would also ask if we would consider only weed stuff out in the fall and not in the spring, because in the fall, it does just as good a job, and the baby herons.
Okay. Nothing else? We have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second by Melissa. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. A lot of ground covered.
Caused a lot of sad.
Do you have another copy of this
Watershed District.
budget?
It'll get better. They'll do some planting.
So, I saw your name.
Back from Atlanta.
Belts was looking pretty good. They have the surface down.
I thought they were doing the final one.
They have every,
Even though it's not reasonable.
I didn't see that anybody had stepped on it, but they had tape to dissuade them.